Hello, friends. This is Mr. Matt here with your children's sermon for today. I wonder if you have ever noticed that sometimes you can take two things that are really good on their own, but when you put them together, something different happens. So, for instance, there's milk, and milk is good and tasty, and it can be just the thing that you need when you're having some cookies or a sandwich. And then there's chocolate or chocolate syrup, and that's good too. But when you put them together, you take the milk and the chocolate and you put them together and you end up with chocolate milk, well, that's something altogether different and altogether wonderful. Or I like pancakes. Pancakes are really good for me. I also like blueberries. I think blueberries are delicious. But when you put blueberries and pancakes together to have blueberry pancakes, oh, that is something spectacular. Or maybe if you think about if you've done one of those science experiments where you make the pretend volcano and you combine baking soda, which is something that you use when you're baking cookies or cakes or something like that, and vinegar, which is something that you use in other foods that you're making, but you put those two things together and it starts to bubble and foam and come up. Something different happens. Jesus, in his story today, tells us something that's important, and it tells us about getting a couple of things together. Jesus tells us that whenever 2 or 3 people are gathered together in his name, he will be in the midst of them. Now, as individual Christians by ourselves, we do great. We can do great things for God. We can pray, we can worship, we can talk to God. And we can do that by ourselves, and there's no problem with that. But Jesus tells us that if you get 2 people together, something different happens. And it's sort of like using your hands. With one hand, you can do all kinds of things. You can pick things up, you can wave, you can give somebody a high five. There's all kinds of things you can do with just your one hand. But you know what one hand can't do? It can't clap. See, there's nothing there. It doesn't hit anything. There's no sound that happens. In order to clap, you need to have 2 hands. And when those 2 hands come together, it makes the sound. It changes what you experience. Because it's not one hand doing its own thing or this hand doing its own thing. It's coming together to make something different happen. And that's what happens when we get together with other Christians to pray, or we get together with other Christians to come and worship God together. When we come together, something different happens. It's not just one Christian and another Christian. It's the Christians that come together, and then Jesus tells us that when we do that in his name, he's going to be with us. He's going to be in the midst of us. He's going to be joining into those prayers and into that time of worship. That's pretty spectacular. It's why it's so important in our lives as Christians. It's why it's so important that we come together with other people to pray. And you probably do that in your own homes. When you get together with other Christians to pray before you eat food, or you get together with another Christian to say prayers before you go to bed, or you say prayers for people that are sick. Because when you do that, it's not just you praying to the Father, and it's not just the other person praying to the Father. When you come together, something different happens because Jesus promises to be in the middle of that, in the midst of that with you. That's pretty wild to think that as we come together to pray, Jesus is there with us to hear our prayers, to pray to the Father with us on our behalf and to help us. That's an amazing gift that Jesus gives us. So the next time you aren't necessarily feeling like watching the church service or saying the prayers, or someday, hopefully soon, when we can come together to worship, some days when you're not feeling that, maybe you can remember that all it takes is a couple of people to be there, and Jesus is going to be there too. We just have to remember to do it in his name. So, I hope that you're having a great day. Maybe there are blueberry pancakes in your future. I don't know. But until next time, remember how much God loves you. Remember how much your parish family loves you. And remember how much I love you too. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.